This is Africa.
The comprehensive history of Zaire, now the Democratic Republic of Congo, from antiquity to contemporary times. Introduction: the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, formerly known as Zaire, has a deeply intricate and multifaceted history spanning thousands of years. This narrative encompasses periods of prosperity and cultural advancements, as well as periods marked by significant atrocities, particularly during the era of King Leopold II of Belgium. This comprehensive account will delve into the history of the DRC from antiquity to contemporary times, dedicating a significant portion to the atrocities committed under King Leopold's rule, alongside an exploration of the ancient era and modern times, culminating in a hopeful outlook based on current positive developments in the country. Antiquity. Early inhabitants. The earliest known inhabitants of the region that is now the DRC were hunter-gatherers, such as the Mbuti and other pygmy groups who have lived in the Congo Basin for thousands of years. These groups relied on the rich biodiversity of the region for their sustenance and developed complex social and cultural practices that have endured through the ages. Bantu migrations. Around 2000 BCE, the Bantu people began migrating into the Congo Basin from West Africa. This migration, which occurred over several centuries, significantly transformed the region. The Bantu brought with them advanced agricultural techniques, ironworking skills, and new social structures. They established numerous kingdoms and chiefdoms, such as the Kingdom of Congo, which became a dominant power in the region. The Bantu migration not only introduced new technologies and agricultural methods, but also led to the spread of Bantu languages, which are still prevalent in the region today. The Bantu people's arrival marked the beginning of significant cultural and economic developments in the Congo Basin, setting the stage for the formation of powerful kingdoms. The Kingdom of Congo. The Kingdom of Congo, founded in the 14th century, was one of the most prominent pre-colonial states in Central Africa. It encompassed parts of present-day Angola, Gabon, and the Republic of Congo. The kingdom had a sophisticated political system and engaged in extensive trade with European powers, particularly the Portuguese, who arrived in the late 15th century. The Congo Kingdom's political structure was highly organized, with a centralized authority under the king, known as the Money Congo. The kingdom's economy was based on agriculture, trade, and tribute from vassal states. The arrival of the Portuguese in the late 15th century introduced new trade opportunities and challenges. The Congo engaged in trade with the Portuguese, exchanging goods such as ivory, copper, and slaves for European goods, including textiles, firearms, and alcohol. The influence of Christianity also began to take root during this period, with the Manikongo Nzinga, Aenkuwu, converting to Christianity in 1491 and adopting the name Joam Fas. This conversion marked the beginning of a complex relationship between the Congo Kingdom and European powers, characterized by both cooperation and conflict. The colonial era and the atrocities of King Leopold II, the Berlin Conference, and the scramble for Africa. In the late 19th century, European powers engaged in a frenzied scramble for control of Africa, culminating in the Berlin Conference of 1884-1885. During this conference, the European nations partitioned Africa among themselves without regard for indigenous cultures or political structures. King Leopold II of Belgium managed to secure control of the Congo Basin, presenting himself as a humanitarian interested in ending the Arab slave trade and promoting civilization and Christianity. The Congo Free State. In reality, Leopold's interests were far from humanitarian. He established the Congo Free State in 1885, a privately controlled territory under his direct rule, separate from the Belgian government. Leopold's primary objective was to extract as much wealth as possible from the Congo, particularly through the exploitation of its vast rubber resources. Leopold's rule in the Congo Free State marked the beginning of one of the darkest periods in African colonial history. The vast and resource-rich territory was subjected to an exploitative and brutal regime designed to maximize profit with complete disregard for human rights. The atrocities begin. Leopold's regime in the Congo Free State quickly devolved into one of the most brutal colonial enterprises in history. The indigenous population was subjected to horrific abuses, forced labor, and systematic violence. The rubber extraction process was particularly brutal, involving the collection of wild rubber from vines in the dense forests. Indigenous people were forced to meet quotas under the threat of severe punishment. Forced labor and quotas. The regime implemented a system where local chiefs were coerced into supplying laborers to collect rubber. Men, women, and children were taken from their villages and forced to work under inhumane conditions. The quotas set by the colonial authorities were impossibly high, leading to widespread abuse as soldiers and overseers resorted to extreme measures to enforce compliance. The forced labor system was enforced by the Force Publique, Leopold's private army composed of European officers and African soldiers. The Force Publique used brutal tactics to ensure rubber quotas were met, including the use of hostages, flogging, and execution. Entire villages were often taken hostage to compel labor from the men. Punishments and mutilations failure to meet rubber quotas often resulted in horrific punishments. One of the most infamous practices was the amputation of hands. Soldiers of the Force Publique were instructed to cut off the hands of those who did not collect enough rubber as a means of instilling fear and compliance. Entire villages were massacred, and the toll on the population was devastating. The practice of hand amputation was not only a punishment, but also served as proof that the soldiers were enforcing quotas rather than wasting ammunition. This gruesome practice left thousands of Congolese maimed and traumatized, and the psychological impact of such brutality was profound and long-lasting. Humanitarian outcry and international response reports of the atrocities in the Congo Free State began to leak out, leading to a global humanitarian outcry. Missionaries, travellers, and former colonial officials who had witnessed the brutality firsthand provided testimonies and photographic evidence of the abuses. Figures such as Edmund Dean Morel and Roger Casement spearheaded a campaign to expose the horrors of Leopold's rule. Edmund Dean Morel, a British journalist and activist, played a pivotal role in bringing the atrocities to light. Through his writings and public speeches, Morel highlighted the stark contrast between Leopold's professed humanitarian mission and the reality of exploitation and violence in the Congo. He founded the Congo Reform Association, which became a leading organisation in the fight against Leopold's regime. The Casement Report. One of the most influential documents in bringing international attention to the Congo atrocities was the Casement Report, authored by British consul Roger Casement in 1904. The report detailed the widespread abuse and exploitation of the Congolese people and galvanised public opinion against Leopold's regime. Casement's investigation involved extensive travel within the Congo, where he gathered first-hand accounts from survivors of the abuses. His report provided a detailed and harrowing account of the forced labour system, the brutal punishments, and the devastating impact on the Congolese population. The Casement Report was instrumental in mobilising international pressure for reform. Transferred to Belgian rule, facing mounting international pressure and condemnation, King Leopold II was forced to relinquish control of the Congo Free State in 1908. The territory was transferred to the Belgian government and renamed the Belgian Congo. Although the transition marked the end of Leopold's personal rule, the legacy of exploitation and violence continued under Belgian colonial administration. Under Belgian rule, some reforms were introduced to address the most egregious abuses of the Leopoldian regime. However, the colonial administration continued to exploit the Congo's resources and maintain strict control over the indigenous population. The Belgian Congo remained a source of immense wealth for Belgium, but the benefits of this wealth were not shared with the Congolese people. Economic exploitation and forced labour. The economic exploitation of the Congo continued under Belgian rule, with the focus shifting to other resources such as minerals, including copper, gold, and diamonds. The colonial administration implemented policies that prioritised the extraction of these resources for the benefit of Belgium. Forced labour was still used, particularly in the mining sector, where harsh working conditions and inadequate compensation were common. The construction of infrastructure, such as railways and roads, was primarily aimed at facilitating resource extraction rather than improving the living conditions of the Congolese population. The colonial government also imposed heavy taxes on the indigenous population, further exacerbating their economic hardships.
Social and cultural impact. The Belgian colonial administration implemented policies aimed at controlling and assimilating the Congolese population. Education was limited and primarily focused on basic literacy and vocational training to create a compliant labour force. The colonial authorities discouraged higher education and sought to prevent the development of a Congolese elite that could challenge their authority. Christianity was promoted as part of the colonial mission, and many Congolese converted to Christianity. Missionaries played a significant role in providing limited education and healthcare, but their efforts were often overshadowed by the broader goals of control and assimilation. Resistance and rebellion. Despite the oppressive colonial regime, there were instances of resistance and rebellion by the Congolese people. Various groups and communities resisted forced labour and harsh colonial policies through acts of defiance, sabotage, and armed rebellion. These acts of resistance were met with brutal reprisals from the colonial authorities. One notable example of resistance was the Pende Rebellion of 1931, where the Pende people rose against the colonial administration in protest against forced labour and exploitation. The rebellion was brutally suppressed, but it highlighted the growing discontent and resistance among the Congolese population. Contemporary times independence and post-colonial turmoil. The Belgian Congo gained independence on June 30th, 1960, becoming the Republic of Congo, Leopoldville, named after the evil King Leopold of Belgium. However, the transition to independence was marred by significant political turmoil and conflict. The nascent country faced immense challenges, including political instability, regional secession, and ethnic strife. Within days of independence, a mutiny broke out in the army, and the resource-rich Katanga province declared independence under Moise Tshombe, plunging the country into chaos. The Congo Crisis. The Congo Crisis, spanning from 1960 to 1965, was a period of intense political instability and conflict. Prime Minister Patrice Lumumba, a key figure in the independence movement, sought to unify the country and address its myriad challenges. However, his tenure was short-lived as he was dismissed by President Joseph Kasavubu and subsequently arrested by forces loyal to Colonel Joseph Mobutu. In January 1961, Lumumba was brutally murdered under circumstances that remain controversial, with strong indications of foreign involvement. His death marked a turning point in the Congo crisis, leading to further fragmentation and violence. Various factions, including secessionist movements and foreign mercenaries, vied for control, exacerbating the country's instability. Mobutu's rise and the Zaire era. In 1965, Joseph Mobutu seized power in a military coup, establishing a one-party state and renaming the country Zaire in 1971. Mobutu's rule, which lasted over 3 decades, was characterized by authoritarianism, corruption, and economic mismanagement. While he initially brought some stability, His regime ultimately led to widespread poverty and human rights abuses. Mobutu's government was heavily dependent on foreign aid and support, particularly from Western countries during the Cold War, due to his anti-communist stance. Despite the flow of foreign aid, the vast wealth generated from Zaire's natural resources was siphoned off by Mobutu and his cronies, leaving the country impoverished. The First and Second Congo Wars. Mobutu's rule came to an end in 1997, when Laurent Désiré Kabila led a rebellion that overthrew him, marking the beginning of the First Congo War. Kabila renamed the country the Democratic Republic of Congo. However, peace was short-lived, as the Second Congo War broke out in 1998, involving multiple African nations and resulting in immense human suffering and loss of life. This conflict, often referred to as Africa's World War, caused millions of deaths and displaced countless people. Post-war reconstruction and challenges. The Second Congo War officially ended in 2003, and efforts have since been underway to rebuild the country and address the legacy of conflict. The transitional government led to the election of Joseph Kabila, Laurent Kabila's son, as president. His administration focused on stabilizing the country, though it faced numerous challenges, including ongoing violence in the eastern provinces, corruption, and political unrest.
Contemporary developments. In recent years, the DRC has seen some positive developments amidst its ongoing challenges. The peaceful transfer of power following the 2018 presidential election, in which Félix Tshisekedi succeeded Joseph Kabila, marked a significant milestone. This transition was seen as a step towards greater political stability and democratic governance. Economic growth and development initiatives. The DRC has vast natural resources, including minerals such as cobalt, copper, and diamonds. Efforts are being made to harness these resources for sustainable development. International investments and initiatives aim to improve infrastructure, healthcare, and education, fostering economic growth and improving living standards. Social and cultural renaissance. There is a growing movement to preserve and celebrate Congolese culture and heritage. Efforts to document and promote traditional music, dance, and art are gaining momentum. Additionally, the Congolese diaspora is playing a significant role in raising awareness and contributing to the country's development through remittances and cultural exchange. Environmental conservation. The DRC is home to some of the world's most important and diverse ecosystems, including the Congo Basin rainforest. Conservation efforts are underway to protect these vital habitats, combat deforestation, and address climate change. International partnerships and local initiatives are working to preserve biodiversity and promote sustainable land use practices. Positive outlook. Despite its tumultuous history, the DRC is moving towards a brighter future. The resilience and determination of the Congolese people are driving efforts to overcome past challenges and build a more prosperous and equitable society. With continued international support, sustainable development initiatives, and a commitment to peace and justice, the DRC has the potential to achieve significant progress in the coming years. Conclusion. The history of the Democratic Republic of Congo is a testament to the resilience and strength of its people. From its ancient roots and the horrors of King Leopold II's exploitation to the struggles for independence and contemporary challenges, the DRC's journey has been marked by immense adversity and remarkable perseverance. Today, the country stands at a crossroads with opportunities for growth and development on the horizon. By embracing its rich cultural heritage and working towards a more just and sustainable future, the DRC can emerge as a beacon of hope and progress in Africa and the world.